I'm not going to worry about your level of concern.
Yoy and double yoy.
We talking about
Twitter.
Triple yoy.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Quadruple yoy.
I don't even understand where that's coming from. I laugh at that.
I believe in the United States of America, and I believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's what Jin's talking about. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation, exposing all the hot and toxic takes across the internet, social media, the media, beyond the sub-media. Is that a word? I don't know.
I think it is now.
I feel sub-media. I'm Kyle Kreis. Here with me is Greg Benevent.
Hello.
On the ones and twos, the Model Meatball, Rob Banks.
Hey.
Coming up today in the second half, we're going to talk the biggest fall from grace. It's been the biggest roller coaster, not since Cleveland's Cedar Point's own mean streak. What's the big roller coaster at Cedar Point?
Or what was the drop? There's the thing that's the actual drop. It's not even a roller coaster. You go up and you go down. Like,
what's it called?
The Millennium Force.
The Millennium Falcon, I think.
That's
no?
Force. I think he said
like
Force.
An idiot now.
I don't remember. I was on the thing. Yeah.
Well, not since the mean streak, the blue streak, the speed demon at Cedar Point have we seen a player have such a meteoric rise and fall. And we haven't even had a single season game yet.
Well, we didn't. I mean, it didn't even start. Yeah.
But you know what? That's only Steeler Nation can have that kind of passion. We'll talk about that in the second half. But now it's time to get to the takes.
Oh my God! They
groomed.
Kenny, you bastards!
The grooming continues season 2 for Kenny, and maybe we've seen all we need to see from Kenny until September 12th. Let's get to at Mark Cabali, insider Mark Cabali. Those who haven't made the camp this year and think we were full of ish about how KP has looked, I present to you 10 for 83, 514, and a 33-yard touchdown. It's the stat line we've been demanding from Kenny Pickens. One drive is what you said it was enough. You said it was enough.
I said
right?
it was enough in that game. Yeah, I didn't say it was enough for the whole preseason. I said it was enough for that game. My opinion about how much the starters should play in the preseason changed forever right around the time of the 2-minute warning in the last Steelers opener. By that point, I think the Bengals had committed their 5th turnover of the half. And after that, I was like, all right, maybe we should see more of the starters in the preseason, since the Bengals profoundly did not do that last year. I mean, they managed to get it together in the second half and obviously had a great season. But I think Kenny should play more in the second game. I do think we're drifting towards a place where the second preseason game becomes what the third preseason game used to be in the days of 4 preseason games, in that this is the one where the starters play the most, and then the third preseason game is where folks on the bubble see where they are in that bubble.
This is the dress rehearsal. Know your lines, know your mark.
Get the blocking. Yeah, exactly. The tech people are here. Yes.
You're in costume. No excuses.
And the Bills being here, I think, helps with that too. I mean, that is the one thing that I think a lot of people brought up after. I mean, sure, they look good against Tampa, but on paper, that's maybe as bad a team as the NFL might have this year. So they did what they had to do, and that's great for the first preseason game. But yeah, I'm fine with putting them out there for a quarter, maybe even more in game 2 here.
Just a quarter. Okay.
Maybe a half.
Maybe a half. That's all.
But it also depends on how that quarter goes. I mean, you score a couple touchdowns. That's a lot different than, 3 and out. Okay, he didn't get a foot in, that kind of thing.
Let's go to the Mad Genius at Mark Madden X. Mark Madden. Kenny Pickett is somehow more popular in Pittsburgh right now than Ben Roethlisberger ever was. Tell me I'm wrong. I can't even, I was like, well, ever was. I mean, Ben's final season, I don't think he got bigger than that for Ben as far as popularity.
No, it did. His first season.
His first season.
The rookie season. Once that took off, I never saw anything like that. I mean, that was because I was still there at the time. I hadn't moved out yet during the rookie season. That was where I can tell Madden he's wrong. And I agree with you on the last season too. But I mean, but that rookie season, I'd never seen a phenomenon like that in the city.
So Kenny year 2 is still, the hype is not yet reached Ben year 2.
Not even close. I mean, and even then, there was a lot of people kind of forget that, the hype for Ben it started to turn on a bit in season 2 because that's where they started to lose some of those games. I mean, a lot of them he was out for, but yeah, because that's the one they do go to the Super Bowl, but they have to go on that long winning streak to get there. But no, the Kenny Pickett hype and love is nowhere near what any of that was like. I don't even need to be in the city to know that.
Everything hurts.
Yeah, don't tell Ben that he's second fiddle to hype. He'll talk about it on his podcast or something. And then
The worst punishment there is.
Everyone will take it out of context. Okay, moving on to at Pickensburg, Tino, real important grooming news here. Coach Tomlin and Kenny Pickett after Kenny wins Steelers home run derby 2 years in a row. Not a big surprise. We saw him hitting dingers at the Cam Softball Classic. This seems to be Kenny's forte is hitting home runs.
Well, so isn't he from Toms River? I mean, like the one little league program that everyone can name, the one like part of New Jersey where they all went to the even I remember them going to Little League World Series to the point where I remember the name Toms River, and I think that's where he's either from that area or like real close to it. So yeah, I mean there's places where that's real serious. I mean there's some people that are good at a lot of sports
All right, well we'll see. If
I mean, I don't know what I mean. I didn't see enough from him hitting the dingers to have him not playing the second game. I mean, there's only so much I could take from that. Yeah,
you're right. If he loses the title, if it depends. If he lost it to someone like Larry Ogunjobi, you'd be like, all right, well, that guy probably has some beef.
Especially if he was still in the walking boot and hit those home runs. That'd be
the
real
way Kenny
impressive.
swings. He may as well be in a boot. It's all upper body.
Oh, is it? I haven't seen it. It's just like, is there any hips to it, or is it just?
If there are, it's hidden hips. Kenny's got hidden hips, little hands and hidden hips. No one's talking about that. I guess there's not much more we can say about Kenny.
Okay.
Because now we've got
These are the new leads.
the new leads.
These are the Glengarry leads.
The Glengarry plays are back.
I can't say enough how glad I am you found that soundbite.
Back to the insider at Mark Cabali. Matt Canada said it was by design that Kenny Pickett spread the ball to 4 different targets on his one drive on Friday. Spread the ball around. No divas. Everyone's going to get a touch here.
I mean, that's a good idea with this wide receiver room. I mean, beyond the idea of that's a good way to play, that's also a good thing to do with this group. But I mean, you mentioned Ben, and I just can't help but think that, in a different era with a different coordinator, Ben being like, yeah, it was my idea to spread it around to 4 different targets like that, because he very much always enjoyed saying that at the press conference about him drawing it up in the dirt and him figuring it out. And now it's Canada that's like, yeah, it was my idea. We spread it around to 4 different guys. I wrote it up. And as long as it happens, they can all say whatever. I mean, that's fine.
That's the Canada offense, right? You don't know who's gonna wind up with the ball in their hands.
Right? Yeah. I mean, hopefully that's the idea. No, I mean it was for I mean, really throughout the first quarter and maybe a little bit less when the backups came in. But you're like, this is the thing we'd been hearing about since Canada was hired. That's what he'd done with Pitt to beat Clemson, which is the only game I can remember. But I mean, this was what you were always told was coming with Canada. This exact thing.
And how about moving on to at Alex Kozora? One last note on the Pickett to Pickens TD. The 33-yard score was longer than any TD the Pittsburgh Steelers had during the 2022 regular season. This is the Glengarry plays, the long touchdowns.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I think it also says something that it wasn't 33 yards in the air. It was to a point, and then Pickens deked out that last guy. I mean, I read that stat, and I thought, man, that couldn't be right. And then I immediately thought about it. I said, no, that's right. I remember now. There were definitely none of the long touchdowns last year.
Yeah, not a long touchdown. We had a yak didn't Frymouth have a big yak play? It wasn't a touchdown, but I think there was a yak.
Yeah, there were some
longer than.
And there were honest, I want to say, I mean, not having the numbers in front of me, I could look ridiculous. I want to say there were a couple to Hayward, too.
I think you're correct on that.
Yeah.
I'll give you the props
there
for
we
that
go.
one.
There's the bell.
Well, we're talking about. Well, you want to talk about 33 air yards? Let's go to at D Lawley PGH. Dale Lawley, the insider. The 67-yard touchdown from Rudolph to Austin is something we haven't seen lately from the Steelers offense. They haven't had anything that long in the regular season for a touchdown since Claypool had 84 yards September 2020. Team's longest last year was 57 yards. That must have been either the Freiermuth or the Haywards.
One of those long plays, yeah.
Are we seeing it? We're seeing bombs for in the end zone.
Well, I mean, a couple things. I mean, what does the bombs need to have happen? You need to have a guy that's very fast, which you have in Austin, and you need to get enough time to unleash the bomb, which Rudolph just barely had enough of. He took a good shot to throw that. Also, I remember that play. That was against the Broncos, I think, in September, where he hit Claypool and he outran the entire team. And I remember listening to the radio broadcast and each of them being like, celebrating and being like, wow, this is weird. There's no one here to cheer for this. Like 84 yards and it is silent. Like the bench is cheering. And the other thing I thought, and I feel almost bad saying this, but it is something of a highlight. It's just in the highlight, the Tampa Bay cornerback leaping to get to Austin. And he's 3 yards behind. Like there's no point to this. I remember thinking, wow, is that optimistic?
That's a joke to me.
Yeah, I'd like to see some more of that throughout the season. Austin burning guys by steps. Who cares about 50-50 balls when you're 3 steps ahead of the guy?
When you're 5 yards beyond him.
Right? Yeah, enough of these contested catches. Just let's torch them.
Right, we contested the guy when we ran past him. The contest is over, now catch the ball in the end zone. Yes.
All right, so all this Glengarry talk takes us to at Darrell Nilam's Schoolhouse Rocks. Y'all, we can't have success in the offense and not credit Canada. It's still early, but hearing things from camp and the first preseason game, it should be a pretty fun year, right? It's like we can't say Kenny for MVP without saying Canada extension.
Well, you can't say Kenny for top half of the top 20 of the quarterbacks in the NFL without crediting Canada as well. It's always interesting when somebody says y'all and not yins, which I'm strongly implies not from the city, and also good for, I don't know if this is AI or they just Googled like smiling Matt Canada picture and made sure to attach that to the tweet as well.
I think that, that might be the same Matt Canada pick that inspired our new stickers.
There you go.
Coming. Shoot,
I
should have
didn't
brought
mean
him
to
into
set you up.
Why didn't I bring him into the studio? Matt Canada, Blame Canada stickers. Our first, is it merch? I guess. I don't know.
I think it technically counts as merch, and remember, we're saying it ironically.
I'm not really selling it. I will. I'll I think maybe $5 for $1. That'll cover postage. Right?
Yeah, I think I haven't mailed a letter in a long time.
We'll get. I'll try to get those for next episode. We'll get or check maybe social media. No, we'll check. Check next week's episode on YouTube. We'll see if we get the Blame Canada stickers on camera.
Stamps in bulk are about 60 cents a piece.
Ooh.
60 cents a piece?
Okay, so we'll come back to you next week, gentle listener, with the exact prices on those things.
Might need to be $1.50.
Apparently,
maybe.
we're stuck in 1999. I was with you, Kyle. I thought, thank you for chiming in, Rob. We were going to
bulk. If you buy them in bulk,
That's a joke to me.
All right, enough. Everyone tuned out on the sticker talk. Let's move on to. This is not Canada related, but maybe it could be. At Lucial 1992, Matthew Lucial, Ryan Clark on George Pickens. George Pickens is much more talented than Justin Jefferson. It's one thing when Pickens himself was saying that he was the greatest in the land. Now RC is on board. Maybe the hype is real.
The hype has to be too much. I mean, it's one preseason game, one quarter. I can't be like this guy's better than Justin Jefferson, who's been maybe the NFL's best receiver since he got in the league. I mean, Jefferson is just such a weapon. The main thing I take away from this is not just that Pickens is overhyped, but rather remember this in 2 months when the Steelers drop 2 or 3 games and Ryan Clark goes on TV and yells to fire everybody. They're a disgrace. They're embarrassing him. He's humiliated this man in Los Angeles in a suit.
Yeah, when they're not playing the Steelers way, all of a sudden,
yes.
when they're not winning Super Bowls, all of a sudden it's not the Steelers way.
But all of a sudden, yes. But so remember this brief shining moment on an August day.
That's a lot of hype. That's a lot of hype to live up to, and there's not much more really to say about that than if he lives up to the hype, then we all better be buying jerseys
Well,
this
yeah,
season.
no, we'll buy the right. If he's better than Justin Jefferson, I would have no problem buying a 14 jersey. Or, I mean, really, the real moral of the story is if he does become better than Justin Jefferson, we all should have bought those Swede 14 jerseys, which are still on sale somewhere for like $20, and then just change the name. I mean, that's that because again, when the Steelers lose, when things go badly, you can get cheap Steelers stuff, which will help you again later in the future.
Will we know this year if George Pickens is this year too the year to emerge? I'm thinking like someone like a Jamar Chase. Yeah, I think we kind of knew by now that he was going to be special.
Well, he was also a fourth overall pick in a draft. I mean, that guy was, and yeah, I mean, but we have a very clear delineating line for this. If he's better than Justin Jefferson, I mean, that's what we were told here by Clark. No, but seriously, I mean, there's always, ever since even before Tomlin, the idea about you were supposed to make that big leap between year 1 and year 2. I mean, that's a very dramatic thing for every good player, and I mean, not that it happens for everyone. Some guys it takes longer, Jason Worlds, but yeah, he should be demonstrably better. I don't know what it would take for me to hear he's better than Justin Jefferson, but
is he better than Juju?
I mean, Juju scored those. Every time I want to be like, yes, I remember that Juju was great at blocking, and I remember that Juju had those bizarrely long touchdowns. For a guy that again had a knee injury that made him not nearly the player he was. So I mean, right now it's neck and neck, but by the end of the season, if things are going as they should, he should easily eclipse him.
All right, that's a high bar, and the bar is set now. The bar is set. Let's flip it over to defense at Steelers_DB. Derek, Quan Alexander is already the Steelers' best inside linebacker since Ryan Shazier. I mean, it's not necessarily a low bar, not necessarily a high bar to cross, but still, we've seen him in one preseason game.
And again, against a team that came in with the idea of like, we're going to run the ball. Like it wasn't, they were going to have Baker or Trask, go down the field, even like a West Coast short passing kind of thing. I mean, it probably, again, it's a low bar, but it's a million dudes tried out for this part. The best inside linebacker since Ryan Shazier was probably Miles Jack before he got hurt. Or maybe Devin Bush in the rookie season. Like, I feel those, and neither of those were particularly good. Maybe Devin Bush before the ACL tear the second season in 2020. That's probably the best, now that I've worked my way through it. But, I mean, it's Quan Alexander could be, if I see him cover anybody when the season starts. I mean, he doesn't have to blanket Kittle in that first game, but see him, defense any kind of pass or get any kind of turnover, he very well could be.
You're exactly right.
Okay, coach agrees. I mean, this guy might not even have the most, may not lead the room in snaps.
He's almost invariably not going to. Cole Holcomb is.
So, it's hard to say this is the best inside linebacker when he doesn't have the dot,
right,
and he might only play a fraction of snaps.
And to speak to your point, I mean, the whole reason that this person tweeted this is because for the first time, or one of the few times since Shazier's injury, was that he noticed an inside linebacker positively. He made big hits. He stopped a guy. 4th and 1. He was all over the field. He got the penalty, what seemed like a fairly clean hit, but still touched part of his helmet, which again is fine, A, in a preseason game, and B, because hey, it meant he was actually there to hit the guy. We haven't had a lot of that with the inside linebackers.
All right. Next on the defense, let's go to at Ben Fennell _NFL, Ben Fennell. Listen, this isn't Casey Hampton at nose tackle, but I think rookie Keanu Benton is going to be a wrecker for the interior of Pittsburgh's D-line. Legit 3-down ability. You saw it last night playing both sub and base. Kind of quiet all camp, really. The name that, we've talked Joey Porter Jr., we've talked the tight end, but quietly, Keanu Benton.
Right, and a couple things. One, thank this person for saying, listen, he isn't Casey Hampton. I mean, that's, if you wanted to get more engagement, you would say he was Casey Hampton. You would just be firing out hyperbole. I mean, two, I also kind of think, as someone whose brain is clearly poisoned by following too much of training camp, I think the nose tackle or, the defensive line position that Benton's playing is always someone that's maybe not going to stand out too much at training camp. I mean, he's not like a Joey Porter Jr. He's not going to be, covering a guy 40 yards downfield and all that. And three. I mean, I certainly think Benton could be good. It could be exactly what they're looking for, an impact player on the defensive line that isn't just Cam or whatever's left of Ogunjobi. But I mean, the guy played 2 quarters and suffered some kind of injury. I mean, that's, he's fine now. Everything, as of, I even checked Twitter before we come on the air. It looks like he's going to play Saturday. But I mean, this seems like, and this is also the kind of guy that can contribute early. I mean, you could send him out there now and not worry about, he's going to miss a guy and he's going to run, past him, catch a big pass for 80 yards. I mean, you can put this guy out early and get some kind of impact. So this one could be good.
Rookie of the year, quietly.
I think it's hard to get that for a nose tackle, or that's not going to have a lot of sacks. I think the rookie of the year is the guy that puts up the gaudy stats wherever he may be.
The team rookie of the year.
Oh, the team rookie of the year. I still remember being there to one game. They gave the award to the guy that was the undrafted free agent because he had the most special teams tackles. I forget which bad rookie class that was. He went to Duke. I remember that. But I remember turning to my mom being like, wow, that was a tough rookie class. Like,
one more thing on defense. At Faribaugh FB, Nick Faribaugh. Terrell Austin on James Pierre performance versus the Bucks. He plays hard, but he left some plays out there he could have made. I think there's still value. I think he's still in a position where he brings good value, but is he the 4th cornerback or the 5th cornerback and special teams guy? We don't know. Not a rousing endorsement.
Well, I think it's the most honest, insightful endorsement I think I've heard a coordinator give on a player in some time. I mean, it's rare that you read something, you're like, wow, I know exactly what that coach thinks of this player. And and what I've seen at James Pierre, I think he's kind of right. I mean, I know very little about how to cover a guy. I don't blame him for the touchdown. It seemed like it was a very good throw and a catch, but it was also his guy. So I don't know what he didn't do before the perfect throw and catch that could have kept that from happening. But I think this is kind of where we've always been with Pierre. Is this exact place. Even those times he was the 3rd cornerback or even the 2nd cornerback, he should have been the 4th or 5th cornerback, but that's just where the talent was at the time.
If he's not the 4th cornerback, if he's just the special teams guy, which I'm fine with him in that role, then who is the 4th cornerback then?
Well, let's see. It's we've got Wallace, Peterson, Joey Porter Jr., and you run into that wall. Who is that 4th guy then?
I mean, right, it's Elijah Riley. It's
he's going to be the slot most likely.
It's the other slot guy, Chandler Roberts. Or?
Yeah, him and Riley are going back and forth. I mean, there's a reason that Pierre played so much. I mean, they want to see exactly what they've got with him here. So yeah.
Let's quickly talk while we're talking special teams. Let's quickly talk. Go back to Real Ryan Clark 25. Mike T talked to me about unleashing Calvin Austin III offensively this week, but they've got big plans for him in the return game as well. Looking forward to watching the speedster from Memphis make plays this year. So we haven't seen him in the return game yet, but to me, if Tomlin is telling Ryan Clark we've got big plans for him in the return game, sorry, Gunner, that's 2 strikes against you. It seems like it's Austin's. We've said that before. It's Austin's position to lose, even though we haven't seen him yet.
Yeah, and I do think that, particularly in the preseason, maybe. Which I guess is weird. I mean, it seems like Tomlin would want to do this at some point, but there's something to be said. He was always, until he absolutely had to, keeping AB from returning kicks once AB became such a big offensive weapon. Then after that, it was like, all right, we're doing this because we have to do it in times when we have to do it. So I wonder if there's something just as conservative there with having Austin do it. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of those highlights when they drafted him were him returning kicks. They weren't just him making catches like the one he did. Again, I keep going back to this tweet. I mean, there's an entire person between the Tampa Bay guy and Austin, and this dude is leaping like it's Inspector Gadget couldn't get there. It's amazing. Like, I love that he leaps. I enjoyed that part of it very much.
If Gunner, we'll talk 53 rosters in the second half, but just quickly, if Gunner is not the return guy, does he have a role in the offense?
It seems, what we were talking about a week ago, Kenny, unprompted, brought him up. Tomlin did the same. The idea of one more security blanket, which again is in many ways Freiermuth's job. But I mean, you can only have so many security blankets. I remember that from being a child. So is
Austin the returner because he's not the fourth wideout. He's really the fifth, meaning he might not get on the field as a wideout.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they're going to try and get Austin on the field as a wideout and some, not all the time, but I imagine you're seeing a pretty fair amount, particularly after moments like this.
Okay. One more thing on special teams. It's gonna be a long first half. At Bud Dupree fan, Billy Hartford, Elijah Riley is a guy who caught my attention during training camp and against Tampa Bay. Could be the next Arthur Mollett or Mike Hilton. Also very impressive on special teams. That's what I saw him. He only played 2 special team snaps, but he had a big key tackle on a punt coverage. And I'm thinking if it's not gonna be James Pierre, then you got Elijah Riley who can play special teams and some corner.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, and I believe Elijah Riley was one of those players that, I mean, I rarely use this word, but I think it fits in the circumstance, heroically, along with like Josh Johnson and guys, that last year when there were so many corners hurt going into the Brady Tampa Bay game that Riley stepped in there and played well, as I remember. I do like this tweet, though. He could be the next Arthur Mollett or Mike Hilton. Boy, those are 2 big differences. I liked Mollett as a player and a guy, but man, oh man, Arthur Mollett, Mike Hilton, that's very big. I mean, Riley was brought in to compete with Mollett originally, as I remember it. So him to be, I enjoy a fan. I like a fan. I could talk to a fan that their expectations are reasonable. He could be the next Arthur Mollett. Well, yeah, that'd be all right. We could deal with that. Yes, I think he's a little bigger, a little more physical. Hopefully, he has that same belief and drive that Mollett did. Yeah.
Someone's gonna have to play teams.
Oh yes, and there's a lot of them that can.
Mark Robinson played a little bit. We started to see him got a couple of snaps.
Yes.
The other Quincy Roche, who if they keep 5 outside linebackers, it might be for special teams. You'd have someone like Quincy Roche or that David Perales.
Yeah, it's. I think those 2 are battling it out. I mean, I know that I could tell the game had gone well, even just beyond the game itself. When you clicked on all those articles or heard the who won and who lost during the game, like they put Roche in the loss just because like they more or less needed to have someone else. Like it couldn't just be what we're about to discuss, but they were like, here's someone else that maybe didn't have as great a game as they know. Pierre showed up there as well.
He didn't play great as an edge rusher, but right. I thought his special teams contributions. I mean, certainly,
and that's where there could be a job. There's a career. There's
Roche caused a fumble. I mean, splash play. That was splash play on. I mean, splash.
It doesn't matter where it splashes. Yes.
Okay, before we go to break. What in the hell happened to Kendrick Green at Andrew Comos, as the Emperor used to say, time to move on to your life's work. Was it a week ago or was it 2 weeks ago? We were ready to.
It was a week ago.
Just a week ago, Kendrick Green was the biggest hero in Latrobe. And now it's time to move on to your life's work.
Well, I mean, we're seeing the difference now between carrying a football and blocking someone.
But and that's the same sentiment here from at Zach Farnsworth. No way they keep Green if he can't play center at an NFL level. I'm already past that. I don't want to see him playing center. If he makes the roster, it's strictly as a fullback.
Yeah, I mean that's almost what it would take, and I think that sort of gets into what you just said a minute ago. Can you really have the fullback being a guy who doesn't play special teams? Which essentially, I mean, in a way, he'd almost be like the backup fullback or the other fullback, since Hayward can play like 3 different positions, one of which is fullback, although I know they have him in the tight end meetings a lot.
He did play, Kendrick Green did play field goal coverage, field goal block, with the linemen. But you're right. He wasn't playing kickoffs. He wasn't playing punt coverage. So I get it.
Pretty tough.
I get it. I get it, but you know what? We'll talk. Let's get to the second half.
Okay, because I have some more I could say about Kendrick Green.
Well, we'll talk 53-man rosters because everyone has brought out their roster predictions again.
We still have 2 more games, including the one. I mean, the third game's going to have more determining who makes this team than the second one. Yeah.
Well, we'll probably do this every week then because there'll be 53-man roster predictions. We'll talk about
still
that.
Better than mock drafts.
Yeah, true. We'll blame Canada. Don't believe me, I didn't forget about blaming Canada.
Good,
We've been praising the Glengarry Canada, but don't worry, plenty to blame. Roster predictions, and the bobblehead that I didn't expect to see from Steeler Nation this year. All right, we'll see you in the second half.
Did you bring the peanuts, pretzels, popcorn? Did you bring the burgers?
Where's the beer?
Did you bring the ketchup, mustard, pickles? Did you bring the pumper?
Yeah, it's here.
Did you bring the icy light Iron City pumper?
Can't forget the pumper.
One of each.
Did you bring the ice to chill the pumper?
Yeah.
When you want a cold one, just reach. Have a picnic, have a party, call the people, tap the pumper, have a pumper party. Did you bring the pumper? Did you bring the pumper? Did you bring the pumper? Yeah!
It's the second half of what Jin's talking about. Time for all the starters to take to the bench and put on the big Canada hats, and we'll let the backups
Yes,
take it from
exactly.
here on out.
We're going to determine who will be here next week and who will simply be bagging groceries elsewhere. Yes.
Who's going to be on our practice squad? Rob, you're...
No. Rob definitely starts.
Oh, you're on the 53,
We've had some
Rob.
practice squad people in here in the past. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
The only Model meatball to be on the... All right. I promised some 53-man roster predictions, but first, it's time to play the hits. Plenty of things to blame him for, especially when you're at Mark Cabali. The insider returns. Mark Cabali, confident offensive coordinator Matt Canada feels Steelers did nothing we didn't do last year. Is this trolling? Because it's like, that's the fans see that and they're like, oh, what Canada? The same old. What?
When they do well, he's entitled to some trolling. He's absolutely earned it. I mean, come on. The man's heard so much. When they start winning, why not come out with this? Why not say the most enraging thing you can? Absolutely. This is what we did last year. This is what we've been doing the whole time. I don't know what you're talking about. It's just been a dominant performance start to finish. Anyway, I wish he earned it. Yeah.
I wish I heard the question, because these reporters and insiders do ask stuff. The question would probably be like, so, you had a lot of success with Kenny out there. What was different than last year? And then he could be like,
there's only the only is, well, that's nothing we didn't do last year. And then you just like look at the guy and then you just like turn your head away just a little bit. Like it's really as much trolling as possible.
Let's continue. Let's continue on this topic with at Adam Quarishi1, Adam Q10. There was nothing we did Friday that we didn't do last year. Matt Canada, please don't insult our GD intelligence like that. I mean, come on. We watched the game. We saw passing over the middle. We saw a 33-yard touchdown. We saw a Mason 67-yard bomb. Mm-hmm. How could you say that was not what we haven't been seeing before, Canada?
And we also saw blocking, and we saw the run game not get off to the best start. I mean, that's what I remember thinking. The one negative about the first drive is the running game was still a little bit suspect then, but it obviously worked out. I do want to say, though, what struck me about this tweet is that, like, so many people tweet and like the coach or the coordinator is talking to them, and then hit me, man, in a weird way, Canada just might be.
He might be talking to fans.
Right, like, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, this might be a tweet just for Adam Q10 and his friends. Like, it's, he really could be.
Well, the national media is still not impressed.
Okay.
Who
is this? I haven't watched this clip, but I keep seeing pictures of this guy. Okay.
We've got Burbank native quarterback JT O'Sullivan.
Okay.
Did he play the Niners?
He played somewhere. I vaguely remember the name.
Well, he's got a podcast called Lot of Big Books on My Bookshelf. I don't know what it's called, but
there's a lot of books.
JT O'Sullivan is not impressed with the Glengarry, Canada.
Gotcha.
Here's the sound.
As a fan of football, let me just say that there's so much better stuff than that. What? I would make the argument that those two concepts probably shouldn't even be in playbooks anymore.
What?
There's so much better stuff.
What?
So much better stuff.
What?
But for this team, this organization, I feel like they do it more than others. It's almost like two middle fingers to the drop back passing evolution of what football is and should be nowadays.
What?
I don't understand it. It's comedy, but also pain at the same time. Like it's very Shakespearean as far as the tragedy tethered to the comedy for me to watch those concepts.
It's Macbeth. It's Matt McCanada. The two middle fingers to the modern passing philosophy. I mean, why we should be embarrassed to even take the field.
Well, first, I mean, I'd love to disagree with the man, but his voice was so perfect. I don't know if I can. That was an incredible voice. I worry that I'm competing against this man for voiceover jobs. I mean, that was incredible. This has actually been a criticism. I feel like going back even generations prior with the Steelers, even in Roethlisberger's era. I remember reading, op-eds in the Cincinnati Enquirer complaining about the Steelers' Cro-Magnon offense. Even if you ever find the Sporting News after they won Super Bowl 40, which might have been the last time the Sporting News was in print, right. They actually had a whole article about the offense. It was called "That '70s Show," and that was the premise, that it was like, and they had this fascinating stat, which is basically like the Steelers only win when the running game does, I don't know, some stat, but then like the passing game is enough passes go deep enough. And this had been like, and it was the same in the 70s, and it was true in the 90s, and it was true with Roethlisberger and Super Bowl 40. And obviously we're a generation removed from that. But I wonder if there's something of that kind of appeals to like Cowher and the Rooneys, and then later into Tomlin, this same idea of, because at first I disagree with the guy, like, oh, this is embarrassing and all that. But in a weird way, he's picking up on what, there is some of that in there, because that is what they're trying to do. They're not trying to be the Chiefs. They're not trying to be the Bills. It's the idea of, hey, we really are going to run the ball a lot. We're not 100% sure on this young offense yet, so we're going to run the ball a lot. We're going to try and play a ball possession. We're going to hope the defense hits your quarterback enough times for us to run the air out of the ball with Najee. We're going to try and play this like it's 1999. And so I think that once he got to the point about the two middle fingers, it very much is, and we talked about this during the offseason, about how they are trying to zag. The rest of the league is zigging, and they're to zag in this other way and hope that it works. That is a conscious choice. I mean, the idea of it, I'm glad someone else tried to work Shakespearean tragedy and comedy into their football podcast. I was worried it was just me. But so there is a little bit of truth in that about what they're trying to do.
Is it embarrassment though, or
No.
is it because like I don't want to be like, well, if it was Bill Belichick, they would have said he was a genius. I don't want to make that kind of comparison, but there is something to like, oh, this is old fashioned and we're still making it work. Like that's a testament to the game plan and the execution. And
well, a couple things. One, I think Belichick is trying to do the same thing. I think Belichick is running the ball a lot. I don't think he's put the entire offense on Mac Jones. Mercifully, I don't have to watch much of this Patriots team, but when I see it, that's exactly what's going on. And yes, that's exactly right, what you're saying. And I think where this disconnect really hits is what you sort of said at the end, which is about saying it works. It worked for one game. But they haven't beaten the higher level teams with this yet. They got crushed by the Bills. They got crushed by the Eagles. They won some games down the stretch. They did beat the Bengals in that first game. And, the first game, things can happen. There are a lot of other extenuating circumstances. But I think I want to give this, to try and steelman this guy, which is an expression I hate using. I think that's sort of where he's saying is, can this beat one of those higher level real Super Bowl contender teams? The good news is we aren't going to have to wait long to find out, because they will play a Super Bowl contender, ironically the one that also wants to do kind of the same thing and doesn't want Purdy to have to win the entire game himself either.
So week one, we'll find out right there. Week one.
Yes, exactly. And then we can come on here and talk about Shakespeare tragedies and comedies ourselves. Maybe we'll read measure for measure by then.
If there was a Shakespearean figure, well, it might be Kendrick Green, but Matt Canada might be one of them.
Canada
as well.
is very much so Coriolanus. The guy that like the opposite of that. Maybe if there was like a sequel where everyone, because they loved him and then they hated him, and this would go in the opposite direction.
And then we'll need him at the end. We'll find out we needed him this whole time. Okay. Anything? Well, let's just say one more thing on Matt Canada at McDowell _Kareen McDowell. He can run the same offense. That's not the issue. He needs to call a better sequence of plays. His play sheet may be a little too creative for the NFL. Is it not the playbook necessarily, but the timing of the play calls, the in the moment, in that moment, that Canada isn't excelling?
I mean, it could be. I have no idea. I am intrigued by that. This tweet says almost the exact opposite of the last guy, where it's like, oh, it's too creative. It's like, you're right. This thing's definitely in cursive. This is too artistic a playbook. I'm not qualified to comment on that either. But I also wonder, and getting back to Canada's comment that we talked about a few moments ago, I mean, certainly people that understand like play calling and alignments far better than myself definitely said on other podcasts about the Steelers throughout the last season, hey, the players weren't executing the play. Like, Freiermuth wasn't blocking anybody for much of the season. So maybe that's where Canada comes into like, yeah, this is the same thing we called, with the subtext being, these guys kind of blocked it this time.
For it. All right, moving on from Canada, let's talk some roster predictions. We've got everyone's dropping their 53-man roster predictions. I've got one from Steel Curtain Network. I've got one from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I got one from Sports Illustrated. I got one from Steelers Depot. So let's just talk about the differences. We'll start at running back. Everyone has the same except Ray Fittipaldo, who has this intriguing scenario of Steelers only keeping 2 running backs on the 53.
Right. McFarland gets cut, I believe, is the one out in his scenario.
Is he getting cut or put to the squad? At
I
least?
mean, I never know. The super practice squad, it's been years since COVID now, and I still don't understand it. I just assume you can put everyone in there. It's like underneath your bed or an attic, but maybe it's not.
I like that scenario only because it lets you keep Kendrick Green as a fullback. If we're not going to dress McFarland in the first place, then what's he got to be there?
And I think and I don't know if Fittipaldo, and I haven't seen Fittipaldo talk about it, but I almost wonder if part of the explanation for how you can try to stash McFarland away is that you have Austin. I mean, how many little change of pace guys can you run an end around to?
And Hayward.
But he's not like a little speed dude.
No, he's not like an Austin guy. But if he needed to line up,
exactly.
In the backfield,
certainly. So I mean, that's not crazy. We're going to give that an NC grade.
Wide receiver. Everyone has Boykin and Gunner except Steelers Depot, who doesn't have Gunner. They're only keeping 5 wideouts.
Okay, so I'm assuming they added something somewhere else in lieu of Gunner.
O-line, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about Gunner? I mean, I just keep thinking if Kenny said he's the 4, then he might have a step up over someone like Austin.
I mean, he very much might, but I mean, every time I think that, I think, okay, as you and I sit here today, there's still 2 preseason games to be played. And that, and here's the thing, if you go by who plays the most, McFarland's not getting cut because McFarland played a huge amount in that first game. And that's where you really can't tell things. Is this guy playing a lot because we're going to use him, or is he playing a lot because we really want to see what we have here, and this is just one last chance?
I'd love to see him play some teams. If he,
Certainly.
He might be too small for that. Maybe that's why. Okay, how about offensive line? We've got a unanimous consensus among all 4 blogs here. 9 offensive linemen, including Spencer Anderson and Kevin Dotson. No Kendrick Green.
This is all. Last week's hype was Kendrick Green. This week's hype is Spencer Anderson as the guy that the 7B pick, one of the last picks in the draft, but they picked him because he can play a whole bunch of positions on the offensive line. And that's how somebody can get and hold on to a job. I mean, I think one of the most amazing stats I've heard in the last few months is that Kelvin Beachum is still in the league. I mean, that's
with Arizona. Is that
I think, but just incredible. I mean, and it shows there's a life for a man like this.
Well, you seem to agree then with at David M. Todd. This guy is going to make the team. Book it.
Oh, that's what everyone's. I mean, I just watched one of those wonderful little videos the Steelers do from training camp, and it was Wolf and them were going nuts about Spencer Anderson. Yeah.
Not a squad stasher there. We got to have him on the 53.
Well, I think, everyone is just assuming that this year there's going to be a lot of offensive line injuries because there weren't any last year. I think we're kind of going into that with that idea, and that's where like preparing for a bad storm, we're stashing as many of these guys as we can.
The Perfect Storm sequel. Let's go talk D-line. This is where there seems to be the most delineation. Fittipaldo at the Post-Gazette has no Brendan Fehoko. Now, Depot has no Isaiah Loudermilk. Now, Steel Curtain Network and Sports Illustrated have no Montravius Adams. So it seems like one bone between those 3, or is it 2 bones between those 3?
And what makes the bones conversation even more complicated is they've been playing Loudermilk a lot at linebacker now too. So then it's like, is there 2.5 bones for 4 dogs. So the analogy sort of breaks down at that point. I mean, I think this is where you could start to see, I think there's a lot of discrepancies here. And I also think it's because people are, it's hard to tell because, again, with Loudermilk, is this guy playing a lot because we're going to use him? Is this guy playing a lot because this really is his last chance?
Well, you're exactly right. Wherever that sound bite is.
Well, you saying it means more than the sound bite.
You're exactly right.
Let's talk inside linebacker.
Okay.
We seem to have a consensus here now. Fittipaldo, Depot, and Sports Illustrated have the 4 main, including Mark Robinson, and the 5th is Tanner Muse. Now, Steel Curtain Network only has 4, no Tanner Muse.
Oh, well, I mean, that's entirely going to be special teams if Tanner Muse makes this team. I mean, it's going to be based entirely what he does on teams. So,
would you keep a 5th?
They've brought in so many of these guys. They've seen so much of them. It does seem like the plan is, we're not going to rely entirely on our inside linebackers. A lot of these guys they signed late, including Quan Alexander. So, I mean, they've shown that they're not, A, they're not all that happy with it, and B, there are other options out there. So I would kind of stick with 4. But again, this is entirely going to come down to teams, and I don't have all that in front of me. So, yeah.
Muse I think he had like 14 special team snaps. Kowalski, the local guy, he did some special teams too, but then he got hurt too in the game. So
that's gonna be tough.
It seems like he's got although some said he played the linebacker position better than Muse.
That could very well be, because didn't he play some linebacker for the Falcons last year? I thought I'd read.
But it's almost when you're talking about the 5th linebacker, it's like teams
you have
or no.
to be special teams. Yes, just as Austin told us about Pierre moments ago.
Now, how about this? Let's talk outside linebacker edge.
Okay.
All of our 50-man predictions have the same 4.
Yeah.
Now, I may say if we don't know what we have in our 5th inside linebacker between Muse and Kowalski, maybe one of these, maybe a Roche or this David Perales as the 5th there instead of a 5th inside linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on how they show at special teams. I mean, I think they've seen enough of Herbig at outside linebacker that they really are going to give him a shot there. They're not moving him inside like, people were telling us literally as you and I were doing that, hey, they just drafted him video. It seems like he's going to stick at outside linebacker for a while at least.
And maybe teams, he didn't play a ton of teams against Tampa,
right.
So we'll have to see because if Herbig's playing a lot of teams, then that could affect the inside room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it. I don't know how much teams did Golden play. I can't imagine it was too much.
Yeah. No, Golden didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The veteran outside backup linebacker. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's talk corners. All of them have, they all got Joey Porter, they all got Patterson, they all got Levi Wallace, and they all have Elijah Riley.
Okay.
Fittipaldo, Depot, and Steel Curtain Network have Chandon Sullivan. Sports Illustrated is going off the board with an outside signing.
I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't try to in that circumstance, keep like Luke Barku or one of those guys instead of the outside signing. I mean, the outside signing, unless it's somebody who's not Patrick Peterson equivalent, but somebody that was a contributing starter to a team gets cut in a numbers thing or someone else just overtakes them. I mean, that's not impossible for the outside signing, but I can't imagine they'd want to do that right now.
Riley and Sullivan, a lot of Depot and Steel Curtain Network have Riley and Chandon Sullivan. Is that too much similar?
I mean, does Sullivan play teams? I assume Riley does.
I don't know if he played against Tampa. I don't think he did.
Okay.
But that Kenny, who did was that Kenny.
Kenny Robinson. Yeah. And Trenton Thompson, who I didn't know existed until he got that interception in the second quarter.
The last position, safety. Everyone has the same 4 safeties. But no Trey Norwood. No one is putting Trey Norwood on their 53 right now.
Well, I thought he was kind of battling an injury too. But yeah, I mean, the guy who was like a surprise starter in Orchard Park against the Bills in 2021 is now not on the team. But that shows how fast it can go.
I put an article up on special teams performances. I'm kind of watching that. Even though NFL Network, if you watched on the replay, NFL Network edited out 3 special teams, a punt return, a kickoff. It come on, this is important.
Right, I mean, in a real way, this is where the real stakes of this game are in the special teams plays, not, a gain of 3 on second down.
I'm watching for special teams. I don't know, but
and if you're watching a replay of a preseason game, you're there for a particular reason, you're not here for, I'm going to take in the joy of sportsmanship.
Yeah, come on, NFL Network. All right, we've got the band trying to take the field. Preseason's here. I'm fired up.
Mm-hmm.
Couple odds and ends. Starting with at Rick Fish 412, former fan of the year, Rick Fish. Okay, that settles it. I'm all in on Kenny Pickett. I'm all in on Matt Canada. I'm all in on the Steelers. Lombardi or bust. I was kind of feeling that before the game, but now, especially after that game, I'm all in. Lombardi or bust. I might not go that far up, but I'll say.
I was going to say that, but you also don't have to go that far to be all in. I mean, certainly, I believe this team's going to improve. That's what I've said every year we've been on this podcast. They should improve, barring some kind of catastrophic injuries, et cetera, et cetera. I will say this is the kind of performance you put up as fan of the year. This is the kind of this guy. I'm all in on him. He's ready to be the fan of the year 2023, 2024.
Lombardi or bust. I'll say playoffs or bust, although I want the playoff win too.
But bust, but bust has a lot of different definitions. Bust is injuries. Bust is a lot of things go bad. Bust is bust more so, just like the playoffs has many roads.
It's almost not a wish. It's almost more like a destiny. It's like Lombardi or bust. There's one or the other. It's a no-win situation.
Right. It's almost like we're talking about a sporting event where you can win or lose. Yes. That.
Okay.
No. But your point is no. But I mean to make fun. Your point is right.
All right. The final word goes to at Foco USA. Did we just become best friends? Nick Herbig and Nate Herbig overalls. We've got the bobblehead Steeler Nation didn't know they needed. It's $90 and it's already sold out.
Oh my God.
Would you and these guys haven't even played a snap in the black and gold.
They haven't played a snap in the black and gold, and neither is going to start. Neither of these players are going to start, barring an injury. I mean, they seem like swell dudes. They seem like, I mean, honestly, I know they're from Wisconsin, but they seem very much like guys, despite the fact they're enormous, that you might see around Pittsburgh. Like, these aren't, like model Burbank kind of guys. The fact that it's $90 is bananas to me. I mean, if you showed this, I mean, obviously the player's name is at the bottom, but if you showed this to the average Steelers fan, they'd have no idea who these two guys are from this bobblehead.
I would say it's Mason and Ben.
Right. Yeah, it's Kenny and Pat. I don't know why Pat's wearing sunglasses. I mean, it's just wild. I will say, having gotten, as someone that receives the Steelers catalog once a year, those overalls go for like $80 or something. I mean,
really?
They're like, I'm sure I'm getting the number wrong, but it's way more expensive than you would think for overalls to pose in a goofy picture with your brother.
It is, I don't know if I would wear those overalls. I see who's the big guy? He looks like Santa. There's like a giant fat Santa who wears those overalls at the stadium.
Oh, yeah. I've seen him around too. Yeah. I mean, that might just be his name, like Steeler Santa.
Steeler Santa. I don't know. $90 bobblehead.
As we always think when we name these things, it's hard to resist the allure of alliteration.
I'll be passing on the bobblehead. But
yes. Oh, yes. At 100%. Or I'll wait till somebody makes a play in an NFL game to consider buying it. I mean, they look great in the preseason, though. The two of them did.
I'm still waiting for a Cam Hayward Funko Pop. So.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
That's what we've been talking about.
I guess that's what we've been talking about. We'll keep the conversation going on social media. I am at Kyle Kreis, mostly on TikTok, although I got laughed at. One of these comics laughed. I was like, man, I can't go live on TikTok. And they were like, why not? And I was like, well, I don't have 1,000 followers yet. And I got laughed out of the room for that one. So
wow.
Apparently, joke's on me if you're less than 1,000 followers on TikTok.
Well, if there's one thing we've learned today, it's about how the streets of Burbank can be pretty mean.
These mean streets of Burbank. Yeah, J.T. O'Sullivan ruling with an iron fist.
Actually, a soft, velvety fist.
Oh, yes, the voice of Barry White and the criticism of Walter White. Where can we find you on social media?
Unfortunately, you can find me at Instagram at Greg Benevent, B as in Bravo, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
Next week, I'll debut the Blame Canada stickers.
There you go.
That you can get sent your way, maybe.
And we'll see who has the next fall from grace after a preseason game.
Yeah. Now they need to extend Canada because I got too many stickers. So this has to last at least 2 seasons. All right, until next week when we are one step closer to officially kicking off the season. Just keep listening to yours coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.